Welcome in for another edition of the Morning Espresso here on the SDH Network, presented by Oglethorpe University, Atlanta's premier undergraduate learning experience and soccer powerhouse. I'm Jason Longshore. It's busy times for the SDH Network. We will be all over Georgia High School soccer playoff action, which starts tonight. The girls in 4A, 5A, and 6A classifications start their state tournament runs this evening. We'll be keeping you up to date with scores from all over the state during our match that we'll be calling Johns Creek at Lassiter, two top 10 teams in the state that, because of the way the regions fall, meet in the first round. That game will kick off at about 6:30. We'll be on there a little bit before that, and we'll stay on for a bit after to make sure you know what's going on all over the state. Make sure you're following us at Soccer Down Here on your social media platforms, and make sure you are listening tonight on the Mixler app or by just clicking listen at soccerdownhere.net to get access to that match. All right. Playoffs, big deal here in Georgia High School. Promotion, big deal in England. Leeds United and Burnley, they have rebooked their spots in the Premier League. 2 games to spare. Leeds a 6-0 win over Stoke City. They've booked their spot. Burnley a 2-1 win over third place Sheffield United. They've booked their spot. Brendan Aronson of the U.S. men's national team has been a huge part of Leeds' success this year. He's appeared in all 44 games, one of 3 players. 41 starts, 9 goals, 2 assists. Aronson has been great in helping Leeds get back to the Premier League. Burnley, one of the best defensive teams we've ever seen in the championship. J.J. Watt, great defensive player in the NFL. Probably pretty happy about that. Only 15 goals conceded in 44 games for Burnley. Other promotion races, League One, Wrexham, they're in second. They're trying to get their historic third consecutive promotion into the championship. They won 2-1 over Blackpool. They're 2 points ahead of Wickham with 4 games to play. They're trying to join Birmingham City as a promoted team into the championship. League Two, little more hotly contested. You've got 4 teams at the top separated by 4 points: Doncaster, Port Vale, Bradford City, Walsall. The top 3 will get automatic promotion. The next 4 teams in the table will go into a playoff for the last spot. In the Premier League, the conversation has been about relegation to a degree, although it's been a little more cut and dried. The conversation's really about who's going to go into the Champions League for next season, because 5 teams will go. And when you look at the table, third place through seventh place is separated by 3 points. Liverpool and Arsenal should be fine. Nottingham Forest, Newcastle, Manchester City, Chelsea, and Aston Villa, that's third through seventh, and there's not a lot separating these teams. Forest is the interesting one out of this group. You look at the table and it doesn't jump out to you. 18 wins, a plus 14 goal differential. That's right around where everybody else is in the spot. Aston Villa is maybe the little bit of the outlier in goal differential, only at plus 6. But Nottingham Forest and how they've gotten there, the way that they play, is the outlier. They're on pace to be the team with the lowest percentage of possession to finish in the top 4 in the Premier League in history. They have less than 40% of the ball in their matches. But they don't press high up the pitch either. That's the interesting element of it. A lot of times, and we talked about this a lot over the weekend with Philadelphia, teams that don't have a lot of the ball will press. Not Nottingham Forest. They don't. They don't really build from the back, obviously. They play pretty direct. They don't really score all that much. They're a very, very good defensive team. But how do they do what they do? That's the interesting element of it, because this isn't just purely sitting back behind the ball and bombing it long and hoping for a set piece and whatever. They look to win the ball back in the middle third a lot. They take away the passing options more than pressing on the ball. They will allow a center back, for example, to walk the ball forward. They're going to take away all of that player's passing options. They want to bait that player into playing a longer pass or dribbling into trouble. Now, the other element of it that's really interesting is, generally, now this doesn't always happen and it can't always happen, but generally, when that first line is broken, they're in a 4-3-3 that turns into a 4-2-4 a lot of times defensively. When that first line of 4 or 3 sometimes is broken, those players don't run back to get behind the ball. They stay up. They stay on the other side of the ball, because what Forest want is to win the ball back and then immediately go with a 3v3 or a 4v4 or even better number sometimes to attack on the counter. That's an interesting little wrinkle here. The ability to drop off of the ball and bait the opponent into mistakes is also another different little wrinkle. They do a great job blocking the 18 from the opponent. Generally, the goals they're conceding are either from crosses that are then knocked down or from shots from outside the 18. This is a very well structured team by Nuno Espírito Santo, who has been in the league before and has not had success in the league before, but he's found the formula for this team to work this season. Now, is all of that a formula for guaranteed success in the league? I mean, you'd have to say no because it's never happened before. Can it work? Sometimes, yes. Can it work with the same group or with the right group that has the defensive strengths to be able to execute it? Absolutely, it can. Is it sustainable over a longer period of time? We might find out, and we'll see if Nottingham Forest gets into the Champions League. Is it sustainable there? I don't know. It's going to be an interesting thing to watch with Nottingham Forest going outside the typical playbook to be a top team this season in the Premier League. They're also an outlier in other ways in terms of the spending, and they're showing other ways to compete. Does that open a door for some different teams to do different things? Potentially, it's more of a, I don't want to say lottery ticket because that's not fair, but it's less of a guaranteed chance of success. Generally, if you have the best talent, you're going to win more games. If you have more of the ball and you score more goals, you're going to win more games. But when you don't have the same level of talent, when you don't have that money, and you're starting to see big separations in the English pyramid in general, you've got to find other ways. Can Forest point towards another way? Because right now you've got a growing separation between the top 15 or so clubs in England, and there's probably a separation in the middle of that too. That group of 15, the established Premier League teams, there's a pretty big drop to the next group, the yo-yo sort of clubs, and then another pretty big drop to the established championship teams. It's really hard to get promoted and establish yourselves at the Premier League level now to stay there. Teams are generally going up and coming right back down or coming down in a couple of seasons. The financials in the championship are pretty bleak as teams spend huge amounts of money to try to get into that Premier League money. I mean, for example, the difference in TV money, it doesn't really exist for championship teams. It could be 2 million, maybe a little bit more per season, whereas it's over 40 million a year in the Premier League, not even getting into all of the other things. But it's kind of creating a separate tier in the middle of those clubs that go back and forth that are too good for the established championship teams that aren't good enough for the established Premier League teams. The parachute payment system of taking some of the Premier League riches, put them aside to give to the relegated clubs to soften that blow of getting dropped, it's helped to a degree, but has it maybe created this middle tier of teams between the Premier League and the Championship? I think so. I don't know if there's a fix to this. I don't know if there is an easy way for more parity across England because they're not going to do a salary cap. They're not going to do some of the things that we've seen in leagues in this country to get there. So, without doing that, I think this is just the natural order of it. And you're only going to see this more until more teams go bust because of the financial issues and have to almost self relegate further down the pyramid, or you just get more separation between these separate tiers of teams. I'm not sure. It's going to be really interesting to watch, but it is becoming a growing conversation in England about how to avoid it. And I don't have any answers to that. The Premier League, they have agreed to requests from Chelsea and Manchester United to move their men's match to avoid a clash with the women's FA Cup final. So the women's teams are playing in the FA Cup final at Wembley on Sunday, May 18th. The men are now going to play at Stamford Bridge on Friday evening. So fans can come to London. They can watch, Chelsea fans obviously stay there. They can watch both games. And it's the first time ever that a men's match in the Premier League has been moved for a women's match. Makes sense. It's smart. It's good on everybody and it's good for both clubs. Let's move to Germany. Bayer Leverkusen, their CEO, Fernando Caro, he has said that the club has a gentleman's agreement with manager Xabi Alonso. He can leave the Bundesliga club to take over at one of the clubs he represented as a player. That includes Liverpool, that includes Real Madrid. Ding, ding, ding. If he wants to, of course, Leverkusen's going to want to get paid for that because he's under contract. Now, that conversation about him going to Real Madrid is becoming more and more loud at the moment. There'd been a increasingly loud conversation about Jurgen Klopp's name and Real Madrid. His agent has come out to throw cold water on that. Advisors at Real Madrid are pushing Florentino Perez to consider Klopp, according to other Spanish reports. Now, Klopp was close to taking the Real Madrid job in 2015. Perez opted for Rafa Benitez in the end. He wanted a manager who was fluent in Spanish. We can argue if that was good or bad. Um, I would be surprised if Klopp left his job as director of football at Red Bull. I would be very, very surprised if he opted to go into the pressure cooker that is La Liga and especially Real Madrid. Doesn't really seem to match up, but he thought about it before, so he knows what he'd be getting into. Xabi Alonso makes more sense. I think it's the smarter play. I think he's the right kind of person for that job. I don't think Klopp is, but don't rule it out at some point if he takes over Real Madrid, and oh, that will be chaotic. Serie A, who postponed their matches yesterday due to the passing of the Pope. They've postponed their matches for Saturday as well, when the Pope's funeral will be held. Now, they have rules that state that if two teams are competing for the title and are tied, or to avoid relegation, which has happened before, if they finish level on points, the matter must be settled with a playoff. It doesn't go down to head to head. It doesn't go down to goal differential. All that does is decide who would host the game. Inter lost over the weekend. They're level on points with Napoli with 5 games to play. Now, Inter has a much better goal differential that would probably hold up. If the season ended today, they would host a 1-game playoff. We haven't seen a 1-game playoff for the title in Italy. That would be amazing. I'm kind of rooting for this chaos at the moment. If it's a playoff for a relegation spot, it'd be over 2 legs. If it's a playoff for the title, whoever has the tie-breaking advantage, either in head-to-head or in goal differential, they would host it. Right now, Inter would host Napoli in a playoff for the championship. That would be unbelievably amazing, and people would lose their minds. And then maybe we'd actually talk about playoffs in other leagues in the world. Just saying. Some updates from around Major League Soccer. San Diego FC, they have acquired 18-year-old defender Oscar Verhoeven. He is on loan through the 2025 season from the San Jose Earthquakes. Verhoeven made 3 starts for the U.S. at the U17 World Cup in 2023, 7 appearances in MLS over the last 2 seasons. He is going on loan from San Jose to San Diego to get playing time. St. Louis thought they had Frederick Jensen nailed down coming over from Augsburg. He's not going to now, according to reports locally in Germany. The player, the club, and MLS failed to reach an agreement on bringing him over. He's going to play out the remainder of his contract. It expires in the summer, and he's going to leave Augsburg on a free transfer after 7 years with the club. Let's go down to Argentina. River Plate, they've got a big week ahead. They go to Ecuador to face Independiente del Valle in the Copa Libertadores at altitude. Then they play the Super Clásico against Boca Juniors on the weekend. They're going to take the approach that we've seen some teams start to do in terms of dealing with altitude. Their plan is to spend as little time as possible in Quito, where Independiente del Valle is located. They're going to fly into Guayaquil, where it is pretty close to sea level, and they're going to stay there. They're going to go to Quito on the day of the match. They're going to play the game, and then they're going to come back the next day to Buenos Aires. Curious to see what the squad looks like. Also, we've seen teams go into Ecuador or Bolivia and play heavily rotated squads. Is it going to be that for River, or is it going to be a mixed group? Do they look ahead to Boca? How does that affect it? We're going to find out. 3 teams separated by 1 point through the first 2 rounds of the Copa Libertadores group stage. River, in terms of the Argentine Apertura season, and they are doing an Apertura Clausura this year, they're also doing a playoff format. River's in fourth place. They're in a playoff spot. They're fine. The top 8 teams in the group will make the playoffs. They are 4 points behind group leaders, Rosario Central. And you're starting to get some questions because the return of Marcelo Gallardo has not been as good as everybody hoped for. It hasn't been bad, but it hasn't been as good as River fans hoped for. So stay tuned to that one and keep an eye on River this week. That's a very interesting schedule they got to navigate. Couple of updates from U.S. Soccer. Most recently, she was the director of coaching at the Reno Apex Youth Soccer Club. But Vanessa Mann is now the new U.S. U15 girls national team head coach. Ciara Crinion, who is moving up to the U16s. She was the previous U15 head coach. She goes up in age group, and now Vanessa Mann is in charge with the U15s. Was a former college coach. She'd been an assistant since 2023, assisted with the U17s this year, has been a scout since 2018. Her first U15 camp opened today in Fayetteville. Isabel York of NASA Top Hat here in Atlanta is part of that squad, the only Georgia based player. Let's go to futsal. Coach Diego Borato named his 14-player roster for the 2025 CONCACAF W Futsal Championship. It's April 28th to May 4th in Guatemala City. The 2 finalists will qualify for the inaugural FIFA Women's Futsal World Cup. That's going to be November 21st to December 7th in the Philippines. The CONCACAF tournament, this is the first official competition for the U.S. futsal women's national team, launched in 2022. Carly Banks, who we have featured on the SDH Network, you can see the whole feature documentary on our YouTube channel. Carly graduated from Stars Mill High School. She is part of the squad, and she has captained the team in its previous friendlies. Excited to see how that team does in official competition for the first time, and we are working on some coverage of it. Stay tuned for all of that on the SDH Network. Stay tuned for Georgia high school coverage starting tonight. Johns Creek at Lassiter. Updates from all over the state. The girls get started today. The boys get started tomorrow. All that will culminate in state championships in mid-May at multiple locations. Will be a big part of the coverage of that for the NFHS Network. We're around the corner from everywhere, as best as we can be anyway. We will be in Marietta today for Atlanta United training. Training Ground Dispatch will go out later this afternoon. All the things. Follow us on your social media platforms of choice. Subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. Subscribe to us at your favorite podcatcher to get all of our content. You can sign up for our newsletter as well by going to soccerdownhere.net. You can join our Fanaticos membership program, get some discounts at local businesses, all the things. We try to be around the corner from everywhere. We succeed a lot of the time, but not all the time. Sometimes we need your help to get there as well. But by listening to this, by reading, by watching, by doing all of the things you do to support us, you help us do that. So thank you, and big thank you to Oglethorpe University for sponsoring the Morning Espresso. We'll be back on Thursday. Tonight, it's Atlanta Soccer tonight, starting at 11 o'clock on 92.9 The Game and the Odyssey app. You will hear from Greg Garza, our friend from Beyond Goals Mentoring, our friend from his exploits with Atlanta United. You'll hear from him. You'll be able to listen to that tomorrow morning, and I'll be back with Espresso on Thursday.